You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.
This is Grand Design Podcast with DJ and Jerry Grand, where we link the chains of reason of sports, politics, and culture.
Welcome to the Grand Designs Podcast, the actual first episode, since we already did a little introduction for you. Today, well, first let me introduce myself. I'm DJ Grand. Joining me is my brother, Jerry Grand.
Hello.
Today we're going to be talking about what I consider a huge menace in our society. And it's permeated all the way down into sports. It is so ubiquitous. It's everywhere. You can hardly escape it. It's pragmatism, or the end justifies the means. Now, we need to lay a little foundation first. So I like to define my terms. What exactly does that mean? Well, the end justifies the means is an action or policy is most likely to be effective in achieving an end. Well, the end that someone thinks should be achieved. It's whatever works for me mentality, whatever it takes to get to the goal. But basically what it means in practical terms is that there are no absolutes. You're free to do anything you want as long as you achieve that goal. I have a couple examples in politics. I got the last two presidents that were both pragmatic. Barack Obama, he seems like an intelligent guy and seems like he has a conscience, but what would allow a guy to look in the camera and say, if you like your doctor, you can keep it, and we're going to minus your deductible by $2,500 each policy. How can he do that and go to sleep at night? Well, the answer is he was pragmatic. He understood that the end is what matters, and lying will get him there. He'll do it. He would rather have done the truth because that would have been easier. But if a lie will get him there, that will do it. There are also no absolute principles in pragmatism. And our current president shows that with his wanting to use a national emergency to get his wall done. Whether the wall is right or wrong is a different issue. But using a national emergency to do it is pragmatic because the end of getting that wall done justifies the means in using a national emergency to do it. Now, how does that all come down to sports? Well, in sports, if you can go way back to Ty Cobb, when he slides in the second base with his spikes coming up to hurt someone, that is the heart of pragmatism, whatever it takes to steal that base. We can also do it, bring it forward into modern times. What really got me going on this is week 17 of the NFL, when the Lions won their last game, a lot of the fans were outraged because they lost a standing in the draft, which means they wanted them to lose. Once again, the end of getting to that higher draft pick justified losing. Now, what does that mean? That means losing is equivalent to winning. It actually brings down winning and makes it equivalent with losing. That is not good.
I can basically somewhat agree with what the Lions were trying to do there. Week 17, they were at the fifth. Before the game had started, they were at the fifth pick. After they won that game, they dropped to the eighth pick. Now, before going into that, that's kind of huge. And if you're planning for the next year's draft and you want a good pick, winning is detrimental in that case. Now, I kind of think the Lions put out a practice squad on that week 17 and did what they could to lose outside of Matthew Stafford. Green Bay had their starters in, and for whatever reason, those practice squad guys were putting out tape for next year.
Green Bay checked out.
Kind of backfired, but in fact that they won, and everybody was upset that they won. When you go back to all these years, they never could win in Green Bay. Now they finally did. The Lions fans are kind of wishing they had lost. But going back now to the draft, they wanted the fifth pick because that fifth pick is huge in the fact that the Giants lost. So they vaulted the Lions in that pick, and they wanted, from what the rumors are, they wanted Haskins out of Ohio State, that quarterback, to replace Stafford. That's all they cared, and they would lose just to get rid of Stafford. Now that the Giants went ahead, and they need a quarterback just as bad as Detroit does, he's gone. So now it's back to square one.
That doesn't justify. I get the point, but it doesn't justify wiping out the principle. What you're basically saying is winning is equivalent to losing. If I need to lose, let's switch that with lie. If I need to lie to get there, I'll do it. If I need to lose to get there, I'll do it. That equates. It gives lying or losing the robes of reason, as if this is good. This will work for us. And that is a problem because it makes all principles, all absolutes, equivalent to non-absolutes.
Well, I think with your definition of pragmatism and how you defined it, and I agree with, but I found one out of the Cambridge English Dictionary. It defines pragmatism as the quality of dealing with a problem in a sensible way that suits the conditions that really exist, rather than following fixed theories, ideas, or rules. Now that one right there says, I don't got to follow any rules here.
Isn't that exactly what I said? At the end justifies the means. You can do anything you want to get to that end. There are no rules. There are no absolutes. There is no right and wrong. I mean, going back to the Barack Obama thing, what justifies a guy who seems to have a conscience, how he could go to bed at night is because he thought the end was all that mattered, and how he got there didn't matter. The same goes with sports.
But I think it goes back to, I want to say back in the 90s when the Wings, when they were desperate, that 42, I think it was 42 years, they hadn't won a cup. They were desperate. Just like the Lions fans are. They're desperate for that Super Bowl, that Vince Lombardi trophy. And whatever, I think the saying was back then, whatever it takes. And that just permeated through because Ilitch went and did that, whatever it took. Sign Brett Hall, sign Luke Robitaille, destroy the whole open cap to where now there's a salary cap in hockey.
No, that was in 2002, which is 4 years after they won their first cups. But that's fine. They were broadcasting to the world that they're pragmatists, whatever it takes to win. That is the problem. You should win on principle. You should win by working harder, studying harder, being a better athlete. Those are winning on principles. When you buy the cup, which is basically what Ilitch did that year in 2002, which is whatever it takes, then you're saying there are no rules. I can do whatever I want as long as I get that glittering prize.
And hasn't that kind of continued throughout and gotten a little bit worse to where we're at today?
Oh, of course it is. Look at the Red Wings today. It's lose to get Hugh. I mean, that's exactly the same? The pragmatism is still here. I mean, it's not win and do the best we can. No, it's lose to get Hugh. That just it speaks volumes because they don't care about honor.
It goes back to that original whatever it takes kind of thing. Now, I kind of think that whatever it takes is being taken out of context a little bit. I don't think the pragmatism you mean lying and cheating. However, that practicing, showing up first, going home later, practicing a lot harder than others, not sacrificing, but doing more to achieve that result, whatever it takes to get better at your craft. Now, there isn't a little within principle at the end. I agree. And that's the problem.
Well, yeah, they're abandoning principle. That's what pragmatism does. It tells you that you don't need principles. The only thing that matters is the end, is your goal. I mean, the Russians or the Soviets used to say you need to break a few eggs to make an omelet. And that was a metaphor for hurting people to get to their ends. And it was justified by their pragmatism. So the problem is these principles aren't just for politics, aren't just for culture. They also permeate into sports. And people believe it. They think that they can do that to win. I mean, what the end justifies the means says is, if necessary, if we put it in a football context, I can block with one arm and take an uppercut with the other arm. I can trip. I can step on someone. I can kick. That's whatever it takes for me to get to that goal line. And I would say the honorable way to do it, the way to do it with principle, is to work harder, is to study harder, play better, learn to be a better athlete.
I agree, but I'll bring today as a good example. Major League Baseball, they're trying to get Kyler Murray to come to the Major League Baseball. They're trying to dissuade him from entering the NFL draft. Now, how it works, and this, I'm not really too, I guess, update on the draft, the bonuses for Major League Baseball, but they give each team $9 million to pay their draft picks in bonuses. The Tigers went second that year, and he was drafted last year by the A's in the 9th pick. He got a $5 million bonus. Now, if he chooses to enter the NFL, he has to pay $2.5 million back. Now, Oakland's $9 million is spent. Gone. The Tigers, again, had the second pick. So there are 8 teams above Oakland that could have chose him, but probably decided NFL may not be worth the risk, and their bonuses really didn't match. Well, today, Oakland, Billy Beane, asked Major League Baseball to basically let him go above that rule and basically bring Kyler Murray to a salary that makes it equal to the NFL and guarantee him to be on the 40-man roster. They really want to market this guy. They want him in the Major League Baseball, but I really have a problem where I'm questioning, do the 8 teams above the Athletics have a problem with this? Are they saying it's okay? Because I know Billy Beane is.
One day they might when it happens to them and they need it. But you're actually arguing for me because you're saying that the rule doesn't matter. There are no rules. Billy Beane can go change the rule as long as I get to that end. And I think that Major League Baseball wants it because they want to market this guy. They want to have the profit come into them and not let him go to the NFL. The end justifies the means.
I'm asking to clarify, would you consider that to be pragmatism?
Oh, absolutely.
This just happened today.
Absolutely, it's pragmatism.
Now, I don't know if Kyler Murray has declared for the draft or not, but if the Major League Baseball lets the Athletics give him more money, I mean, what's that tell, this is going into all sports that what? You can do anything you want. And plus, they opened up Pandora's box now because next year with the Heisman Trophy or an NFL two-way player, that guy can say, hey, wait, you're going to do it there. And what about other organizations? You let the A's do it. I don't think baseball really realized what they're kind of opening up.
See, what has it done? It brings down. It doesn't raise up. It brings everyone down. Now we all have to do that. See, that's exactly what I'm saying. It allows the robes of reason to cover something that has no reason. It's irrational.
I guess back in when we were little, the Tigers, some of those players, they had to have a summer job. It's changed since then. I mean, pragmatism wasn't back then. So how do we get it to change to go back to that, to where it really wasn't about just like what you're saying, win at all costs, the end justifies the means? Because I know you brought up Ty Cobb, but some of those guys, L.K. line, they had honor. They had
I didn't imply that it was all, but it was an example, Ty Cobb being an old example of pragmatism and anything it takes to get to that stolen base. I mean,
how do you change it? How do we go to the culture?
By alerting people that there is pragmatism and that you can. I mean, you have to know what it is before you can even go to change it, and you got to know it's bad. Most people, and I would say unwittingly, I think most people are good natured, but they are making a huge mistake when they embrace pragmatism because they're throwing away absolutes, throwing away principles. It's the principles that you need to guide you through life, and without principles, anything goes. It's deuces wild.
But in today's society, especially, winning's everything. I mean,
that's the problem.
Back in the old days, they honored the contract. I remember William Clay Ford was accused of being too loyal to Wayne Fonz. All right, probably one of the winningest coaches in line history, but he was accused of
one playoff victory.
being too loyal to him. How do you go back to where you change that now to where now it's if you don't win, you're fired. For example, in Arizona, they fired Steve Wilkes after 1 year. I'm not going to get into whether there was enough time or not, but there was a 3-year contract. They didn't really, I mean, they paid him, but after 1 year, you're out. And then they bring in the new hotness, Clint Kingsbury, the former head coach of Texas Tech, who accepted a job with USC as the offensive coordinator 1 month prior. And now he jumps to the NFL. Again, there's that coach, Steve Wilkes, I think he would have been best served in his interest to take that philosophy. I don't think he would have had a chance to, but if I lose, I get the number 1 pick because I want my job next year.
But you also lose part of your soul. If that matters or not, it doesn't matter to some people. But when you sell out, you're losing part of your soul. When you don't use principles, you're tainting your soul. And to do it on principle, to do it on honor, you can achieve the same result. You can still get that glittering prize, but you don't have to sell your soul to get it. I mean, it's a metaphor, but you're dancing with the devil when you do that.
Would you consider the Patriots and Bill Belichick to have sold their soul for what they have done? I'm talking filming the practices.
For Spygate, yeah, and also for Inflategate. There was no doubt about it. That was pragmatic. There's no doubt about it. The end was knowing what the other team's plays were. Justifies them filming it. And they knew it to be illegal. And what did they do?
They still did it.
Rules don't matter, which is the Cambridge definition you brought up. Rules don't matter. There are no absolutes. There is no right and wrong. All that matters is the end. And if I can win that game, well, then that's all. That's it. That's the determining factor.
There's no unwritten rule in the NFL. It's unwritten, but if you don't get caught, you didn't do it.
You still, it's like Socrates' invisible ring. You can be invisible. He said that no one would be able to be honored if they had an invisible ring because you can go and steal. I totally disagree with that. You still know, you yourself know you're not honorable. Even if it's broken down to that one person, you still know that you did not do right. And it's your soul.
Let's go to the mindset of Dick Buckus. Now, those guys, come on, they were dirty. And in those trenches, was pragmatism okay there? I mean,
I guess it depends on what you mean.
I mean, if I didn't get caught, I didn't.
Yes, that is absolutely pragmatism. If you did it on purpose and you did it to get away with it, and if I don't get caught, then absolutely that's pragmatism. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. When I played, there were guys that were much bigger than me, and they would take and grab me by the face mask and push me down to the ground, doing it because they can get away with it. Well, that's pragmatism.
Football mentality.
And the problem is the mentality. It's the glittering prize. That's all they're after. If the prize didn't mean that much, if honor meant more, winning is great. You should all strive to win, but at what cost? You should not sell out your principles, sell out your soul in order to win. You see, the phrase is pragmatic. When it's whatever it takes, it's a fragmented sentence. The phrase should be whatever it takes within principle.
And that principle thing isn't going to be there. And if you went back with principles now to every Super Bowl winning coach, there's been 50 of them, 51. How many weren't pragmatic?
Well, I can't tell you without evidence. I know I would think that Lombardi wasn't pragmatic. I would think he lived by principle. I mean, when he said practice doesn't make perfect, perfect practice makes perfect, that is precisely what I'm saying. It takes you to be a better person to get the win. And he even said, if you did the plays the way he drew them out and you did them the way he said, you should score every single time. That is being a better player.
I don't think that guy's going to last in today's current society. But there was an instance where the players, he'd fine them. If they didn't do the play right, they would get fined. One of the players literally broke his play, but sacked, I forget what, it was against Dallas, I forget what game, but won the game based on that sack. And Vince Lombardi still fined him.
He should have.
Because he broke the play. Even though he won the game and still ended up sacking, I forget the quarterback, he still got fined.
He should have.
No, they joke about that because he still fined me, and he was the hero of the game.
Okay,
but that guy, that
hero
coach,
is relative. Was he a hero when he broke? Are you a hero when you don't go by principle?
He was thinking
you don't go by honor.
He was thinking before he got fined because he couldn't believe that Vince Lombardi still fined him.
Lombardi didn't think so, and justly fined him.
There's one of your going back to the real honor of coaches. I mean, he had honor. But how do you do that? That's what I'm saying. How do you do that today? How do you get to be Lombardi? Because look, Steve Wilk, I bring him up again, 1 year, and they fired him. There are a lot of people who's calling for Matt Patricia's head after 1 year.
But that's a matter of circumstance. He got into a bad team, and it would take much more than 1 year to get out. I would say that's unfair, but I don't know if he was pragmatic. Without evidence, I can't.
No, I agree. But what I'm saying is that's where I can understand him being pragmatic to keep his job. Because you've only got so many. Look, I get the honor. Why
do you understand it? I don't understand your understanding because why can't he do it with honor? Why does he need to forego principles?
I don't know if he didn't do it with honor, but I'm going to assume that he did, and he got fired after 1 year. Well, so there's where I'm going. I'm trying to tell you that.
It's a different issue. My point is
to be pragmatic. Maybe he'd have a job.
But without
maybe he'd still have his job today. Because again, 1 year on a 3-year contract, that's kind of unheard of. Vance Johnson in Denver, although that was 2 years, and okay. I mean, I get the 2 year, but again, Detroit, they want Matt Patricia gone. It's only been 1 year. And their main reasoning is they went from 9-7, winning record, and they were supposed to get better, and they went to 5-11.
The ones that would be pragmatic in that instance would be the fans that want him gone without giving him, because it's just, I want to win, 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 win. That's all that matters. Without giving him
we go back to that. Just like the 42-year itch for the Wings. This Detroit, I mean, this town, Detroit, is just thirsty for a Super Bowl. And it's anything. If it's get rid of the coach after 6 months, 6 weeks.
See, no principle, no honor in that whatsoever. It's whatever it takes to get that Super Bowl, the Lombardi Trophy. That glittering prize is all that matters. And you forgo all absolutes, all principles to get there. That is a huge problem.
Well, here's even a better example. Jason Garrett. His contract's up. And they're talking about renewing him a contract, but it's only a 1 year. So next year, he could be gone after 4 games. So if he wants to keep his job to get an extension, he may have to be pragmatic. Otherwise, literally, again, they're not going to sign him for 3 years. They're going to give him a 1 year. And if they go 0-4, it's not 1 year. He's out the door.
Why do you say may have to be pragmatic?
He wants to keep his job.
It doesn't have to be pragmatic.
No, it doesn't have to be. But again,
he could work harder. He could get his players to study harder. He could coach and motivate better. Those are all based on principle. And it doesn't always work in your favor. I mean, it's nothing's guaranteed in this world. But what you will be guaranteed is you'll keep your soul. You'll keep your honor. Honor, to me, honor means much, much more than some glittering prize. And to give up your honor just to win a prize, that's not a price I'm willing to pay.
The prize being his job.
I don't care. I don't care if you want to call it his job, if you want to call it the Vince Lombardi Trophy, the Stanley Cup. If that's all that matters to you, and you'll do anything, and I mean that word, anything. I'll cheat, I'll lie, I'll steal to get it. No, it's not worth it. You've lost. You are not a winner anymore. Even though you have the glittering prize, you're still not a winner. You've lost. You haven't won.
So I go back to, how do we bring Vince Lombardi back? How do we get the society to accept that integrity? Because that's not the case today.
That's the problem. It's so permeated. It's ubiquitous in our society. That's the problem. You got to get people to recognize pragmatism for when it rears its ugly head. And you got to get them to say, no, I want to act on principle. As long as all that matters is the trophy. Because that's literally what we're talking about. The trophy's all that matters. And I'll do whatever it takes to get that trophy. Sometimes what they mean is I'll sweat harder. And that's honorable. I'll try harder. But that's not what that phrase says. Whatever. That's the operative term. Whatever means exactly that. I'll trip. I'll punch. I'll bite. I'll pull hair. Those are things that are not honorable and shouldn't be in any sport. And if you need to do that to win, you've actually lost. It doesn't matter if you won, if you're Brady and you're considered the GOAT. If you had to do that to win, you're not the greatest of all time.
I understand it takes it all away, but we got to get back to our house. How are we going to get the integrity of winning back, or to get the pragmatism out? You
got to start seeing it where it is. It's everywhere, and you got to start seeing it. When the Lion fans were rabid because they lost a draft picks spot, you notice that there's the end is what matters, not the winning. Winning used to be honorable. Now what that says is winning isn't honorable. What only thing that is honorable is getting that higher draft pick spot. You need to recognize that and pull back. I mean, pragmatism is range of the moment thinking. We got to get out of that range of the moment and start thinking more long-term orientated, because that's what makes you stick to principle. The hard work is long-term orientated. It's not going to come overnight. And there's another problem with this society. We want the quick fix. We want it right now, immediately. And in order to get it, sometimes you have to short circuit the system to get it that. And there is where the problem is.
Correct. You have coaches, GMs that want to come in here and change the culture in Detroit. It hasn't worked yet, but they'll take that mentality. I'll do whatever it takes to bring that championship here. And the fans, that guy go down, whoever it may be. If Patricia is to pull it off, pragmatically or not, he'll be a hero forever.
It's sad. It's sad that they have to do that to win. I mean, the Detroit Red Wings in 2002 had that huge banner with the purple octopus. It said right on Joe Louis Arena, whatever it takes. They were announcing to the world, we're pragmatists. They probably didn't know it. They probably did it unwittingly. But it doesn't matter. The truth is the truth. The Pittsburgh Penguins, they open up their locker room doors and there's a huge sign saying, whatever it takes. They're announcing to the world, or at least when the doors are closed, they're announcing to their players, we're pragmatists. We'll do whatever it takes to win the cup.
Watch the NCAA basketball tournament and the shirts they wear.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
That's the problem.
Here we go again.
That's the problem. They don't understand that phrase has meaning, and it's what I'm about to say. I don't mean the people are evil. I believe most of them do it unwittingly, but they are endorsing an evil concept.
And that's where the Wings, I don't know their public relations or their marketing people. If they were unwittingly, I'd like to think that they went harder practice. We're going to get up earlier. We're going to leave later. I don't want to get into sacrifice. We're going to sacrifice our free time more ice time, practice more, not taking these days off. I don't think they got into although hockey's one of the roughest sports with checking and, being dirty. I like to think they had that honest approach to it. Well, back then I did. But now, sometimes you have to think, like right with the lose for Hughes. I mean, in the beginning, that's what it was. They started getting good, they started winning, and now they're not doing that great. Now it's all over lose for Hughes. But the NHL and the NBA have kind of taken care of to where you can't tank it.
No, but you can improve your odds by being pragmatic. And that's what focus on the first part of that phrase, lose. No, it doesn't matter now. What they've equated winning with losing. They're now equal in concepts. That's the problem with pragmatism. Let me give you an everyday example of how it's everywhere. You notice you see a bumper sticker that says coexist. And every one of those represent a different religion. One's the Islamic, one's the Jewish star, one's the Christian cross. What that says is all those are equivalent. There's no absolute right, no absolute wrong. And I would rather, I'm not any of those, but I would rather stand next to someone who says there is an absolute truth, even if I disagree with that absolute truth, than with someone who says there is no absolute truth, because that means deuces are wild, anything goes. And most of those people that have those bumper stickers, once again, they don't understand that they are broadcasting their pragmatism to the world. That's the problem. They need to recognize the fact that they're being pragmatic.
And so the sports going back, maybe the late 90s, early 2000s is what started this pragmatism to where it was accepted now in our society.
I honestly think it started with the Super Bowl getting more popular. I really believe
that was in the mid 80s.
It was. That's when it began. But that's when everyone had to go for the victory. That's all that mattered. And everything after that, from the NCAA to Stanley Cup, it mattered more. It mattered more. Winning the MLB, the baseball championship, it mattered more. It was the winning that mattered. No longer mattered was how you got there. No longer mattered was the hard work. What matters is just winning.
It's banners.
Yeah.
Championships that you raise, correct. And that's where ESPN came in, the worldwide sports.
Yes.
And now back when we were growing up, you only got 5 minutes of the 11 o'clock news if you wanted sports. And now it's every day out there. So now it's win more at all costs. And there's the at all cost thing where whatever it takes.
Yes, that you're identifying, you're arguing for me. Because that is the problem, at all costs.
And again, when you have these different definitions, because you could have someone like myself who I want to be a good GM. I want to make my mark in Detroit. And this basically says I have no rules.
Well, that's actually not a different definition. It's saying the same thing a different way. Because what I said is there are no absolutes. Truth is equivalent to lying. That is, there are no rules. It's just saying it a different way.
This definition is making it more to where it's
what makes you feel more comfortable?
More comfortable to where I'm not a pragmatist now. It's more on the ethical side. Even though it may not. It still may be
it's not. It's not an ethical side. There are no ethics. See, here's the problem with pragmatism. It absolutely wipes out the entire branch of ethics. You don't need it anymore. Only thing you need is results. David Hume wiped out or wanted to wipe out the branch of metaphysics. Pragmatism does that to ethics. It's no longer necessary. The only thing that is necessary is the outcome.
So basically what you're saying is the rules are there are no rules.
Yes. That's precisely what pragmatism is. What it ends up being. Because, well, it's the end that matters. The rule is whatever it takes to get to that end. That end is all that matters. And how I get there doesn't matter. Lie, cheat, steal.
I don't want to say it's the money in sports, but with winning, the advertising, the sports contracts, it's a billion-dollar industry now. So there's where that winning at all cost. Now, a championship, it will not only will give you folklore like Bill Belichick, who's I don't think one of the greatest coaches, but he's going to go down as one of the greatest. Him and Brady got the all-time playoff record together.
But how did they do it?
Again,
at least 2 times. I don't want to accuse them of all the other ones because I don't know, but at least 2 times I know they were cheating. As you already brought up, the spy gate
that's what I mean.
The Flake gate.
There are 32 teams in the NFL, 31 cities. All right, New England basically said it was okay, but outside of that, in New England, anyone else does it. No, not good.
Here's another problem. When they do that, the other cities have to say, well, we need to do that to win too.
Because they backed
up.
And
it just piles on top of each other. It makes it harder and harder. I mean, your question was, how do we get it out of society? Well, stop doing it. I mean, because by following their example, others follow their example, and it's everywhere. And that's what it is today. It's everywhere.
The NFL caught someone red-handed. And it's not, you don't have to be a scientist or a police detective to understand that Brady had a a hand in on deflating
Because
those balls. But to a man, every New England fan of the Patriots said that was okay. Get off them.
You're absolutely
That's
right.
fine.
And those fans were pragmatic. Even the Brady rule of not being able to hit quarterbacks.
The tuck rule.
The tuck rule. Even that is pragmatic.
Well, that goes back with the whole NFL with pragmatism, and that was the Raider thing. And
I agree.
You'd have to go back and listen to Jerry Rice and hear what those guys have to say. That because you go with the replay rule. I think at the time it was only supposed to go 3 minutes, and then they had to make a decision. Well, that went beyond 3 minutes, well beyond. Now, again, if you listen to Jerry Rice, they were talking to people in the NFL that, no, we're going to make that rule tomorrow. It's a tuck rule. That isn't a fumble. And any other game before that, it would have been a fumble. So the NFL now steps in, whatever it takes, right?
Sure.
That's the league.
Well, the league can be just as pragmatic as individuals.
And if the league
It doesn't change.
And if the league is showing the examples of pragmatic, how does a coach or a GM survive without being pragmatic?
By following honor, by following principle. And that's the key. No, that's the key.
Unfortunately, they're going to get fired.
You see, then lies the problem. What matters more, your honor or your job?
So basically, you're not going to be coaching anymore in the NFL. So go basically do something.
I mean, you're talking about whatever it takes. If that's what it takes, you're going to lose it. I mean, then at least you're doing it with honor. I'm sticking to principle, and I say whatever it takes. If I get fired, I get fired, but I'm going to stay with principle. See, there's the honorable way to do whatever it takes.
How many of those people do you think really exist?
Well, they're fewer and fewer. That's my point. We got to wake people up so that they won't fall for this scheme anymore. I think it's a scheme. It's been around since John Dewey and Miller in the early 1900s. They started, the Dewey Decimal System. That's the guy who brought pragmatism to America. That was in the early 1900s. More than 100 years later, it's everywhere.
Well, that's 100 years of undoing. That's going to make it tough, and
it's going to be. You got to do it day by day
to get people just to walk away from sports.
I didn't say walk away from sports.
Well, from rooting for your team.
I didn't say stop rooting for your team. I said stop abandoning principle.
Well,
there's a huge difference
in today's sports. You're going to walk away from your team if you're going to abandon your principles. Because, I used to like the Dolphins, not anymore. I don't follow them anymore. They've gone away from winning, which what they used to be, to where now the owner, it's really about making money. Now, he's a capitalist, and he has that right. But I'm not. I walked away.
But you walked away on principle, didn't you?
Well,
you didn't walk away. There's no.
How many people are going to do that? They're so thirsty and they're so hungry to be that diehard Lions fan. They want to win that championship, and they themselves. I don't think this town's any different than New England. They busted someone deflating balls at this place, if we were winning. Now, this year, has Stafford been busted for deflating balls? That's the reason to get rid of him. That's just a good more excuse. Here we go again. Pragmatic.
It's all relative, though. The only reason that they accepted it in New England is because they were wearing red, white, and blue jerseys. They would accept it in Detroit if they were wearing Honolulu blue and gray. That's all relative. But it doesn't justify. It shouldn't be in there at all. But that's just.
And in New England, they never questioned Belichick on being tardy or on time for his meetings. You know why they never questioned him?
Because he won.
Well, here in the first year of Patricia, who is a disciple of Belichick, the media is going after him and his tardiness for being the reason. Why? Because they lost. They were 9-7 last year. The expectations, I think, were false to begin with in the year, but nevertheless, it was playoff bound. No excuses. And they didn't come close to that.
That doesn't necessarily. Did Patricia purposely walk away from principle by missing those? I think what he did was sort of a bad example.
I guess what I'm getting at, if Patricia's sitting here and they're going to come at me about being later on time, which tells it's about winning and losing. So now I have to win. Because if I won, it wouldn't care.
But if you're on time and showing your guys that you need to be harder, work harder, show up earlier, study harder, isn't that a first step to do it? That goes back to
Vince Lombardi and the Vince Lombardi rule.
You asked how we do it in modern times. That's how you do it in modern times.
But again, I'm getting back to where Patricia, who may want to be the honorable person, but then because he's losing, now he's being attacked by the media. And that's what's going to happen. The media is going to attack someone based on, he's doing it the right way, but he's not winning. Now, I'm engaged in speculation here, but if he's losing and he's losing honorably, they're going to come after him and he's out the door. Honor doesn't matter.
But at least I would walk out the door with my head held high if I did it the right way.
You would, but when you got people that want their jobs, feed their family, and that lifestyle that they've acquired now, which is millions and millions a year.
You're talking about the end again. The end is that lifestyle justifies lying and cheating to get there. And that's another example of pragmatism that doesn't. We're just falling in the same trap all over again.
It's this vicious circle because this guy's making millions.
How do you stop the circle? By living by principle. The problem.
I think that's a dream world in today's society because how are you going to live in principle? You lose your job, and now I got to go flip fries or burgers?
It's pragmatism that caused it to be a dream world. Like I said, it gives the wrong ideas the robes of reason. It cloaks them in what seems to be the right path, but it's the wrong path because you are abandoning principle. The problem with it is it's epistemological. It makes all ideas egalitarian, and the only thing that's equal is we walk to the local cemetery where everyone's equally dead. I can be a better writer than you. You can be a better runner than me. All things are not equal, including ideas. Right does not equal wrong. Look, if you have a plate full of food and you take the littlest, tiniest bit of poison and put it in that food, what wins? The food or the poison? The poison will win eventually. Every single time. That's what's happening here. The poison, the little bit of it, well, now we have a lot of it, but what started out as a little bit of it, it's winning every single time because we've abandoned principles.
So what you're saying is you have to blow it up.
We have to start thinking. That's what I think has to be done. We've stopped thinking as a society. We need to start thinking again. And more than think in principles because it's the principles that matters. It's an absolute right or wrong that matters. Now, there's always context. Context defines knowledge. Okay. But you need principle to have any kind of action. If you don't live by principle, you could literally stick your hand in boiling water and you end up dying because you don't have principle of right or wrong. Anything goes. It's dangerous. That's the problem. They're playing with dynamite.
Right. And the amount of money that we're paying these players, which I have no problem with. But when you got to coach players that are making millions and they want to keep that lifestyle for their family, that's what it gets into. I know I'm going back to that. No, that's where I'm going to that dream world that I can understand that. Look, I'm going to be, I don't want to use the word coy. But if I was the GM and I wanted that draft pick, you rest the players. If it's the best interest of the next years, you never want to lose. You never want to go out there and say you want to lose. Like those players in the week 17, they didn't want to lose. They were going out for tape.
I never said I did. My problem was with the fans unwittingly promoting pragmatism by saying we should have lost. We should not have won. I never said that the players wanted to lose. I never said that the coach wanted to lose. I have no evidence of that. I do have evidence that the fans were outraged, not just the fans, local sports talk radio was outraged because they lost playoff or draft position, all because they won.
Right.
They did the right thing and they were mad about it. Doesn't that speak volumes?
But them putting out that practice squad, that lineup Detroit put out, was the week 4 preseason lineup. It was not any week starting game. So in a way, I'm thinking
argue
that
they
Lions,
were being pragmatic. I don't know though. I don't know what Patricia's thinking was. If it was to lose on purpose, then you're absolutely right.
Outside of Stafford playing, they had a 7-string wide receiver. Again, those guys wanted to prove and make tape for next year. Again, didn't go as planned.
See, those guys, what were those guys doing? They were working harder, playing harder. Those guys, the 4-string guys, were playing by principle. Everyone needs to do that more because they won.
I wouldn't say they were playing by principle. They were going out there.
The principle of working harder. The principle of doing the best they can to prove they can play next year. Yes, that's what they were doing.
Within that game, what were they being honorable? They didn't use any pragmatic, like we were talking about the trenchers.
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
If you have evidence of that, please bring forward and we can analyze it. But without evidence, I can't just judge someone without that knowledge.
No, I think every one of those guys wanted a job. They were showing not for the Lions, but tape next year.
But that doesn't mean that
Packers
are
the ones that sunk it in.
Yeah.
They were already.
They tuned out. They
had
their
U-Hauls.
suitcases were already fine. But that doesn't mean that what you call the practice squad were pragmatic. It's very possible that they played their best.
I don't think the players were. I'm questioning the Lions and putting out that lineup. Because again, that was a practice squad lineup.
You're probably right, but without absolute evidence, If he did it to lose on purpose,
that's my example.
And to get a better draft pick, then he was being pragmatic all the way, and he was wrong. But I don't know if that was the case or not. I truly, what makes me doubt it is because he still had Stafford out there.
I agree, but that's what I'm saying. You don't tell the fan base, the media, what your plan is, or you don't tell them what you're thinking. You go out there and you want to see the tape on these guys. You want to get them going, but knowing full well, though, odds are you might lose. But then again, you get the higher draft pick. That there is some value in that. Not just the first round. Every round thereafter, it's the 5th pick. Now it's the 8th. So there's how many rounds that the Lions are getting a lesser of a value of a player. Now, what goes against that is the GOAT was found in the 6th round. So you still can get good players in the 6th round with quality scouting, quality drafting.
So you didn't need to lose on purpose, did you?
In that instance,
look at New England. They're in it every single year, and they have a low draft pick at least the last 10 years or so. Every single year they have a low draft pick, yet they're still in it.
But I think that gets into we're talking pragmatism. What I think New England is, they are pragmatists. But that's good scouting and good management.
Yeah.
The Lions.
That's going on principle. That's what you need to win. You don't need to lose on purpose to get the higher draft pick. You don't need the higher draft pick to get your goal.
You could do that through the draft, through the season, the coaches, the GMs. It'd be a better world. But here we go again. I call it dream world.
Didn't we just demonstrate that the Patriots are doing that?
Yeah, but at the same aspect, they're taping practices and they're deflating balls. And I wouldn't even go against Belichick. Like, the guy's a schemer.
You're right, but we're talking about two different things. We're talking about better draft picks.
So
and we're talking
in one
about
aspect, they're honorable. In another aspect, they're pragmatic.
Exactly.
But yet they're now considered one of the greatest franchises because they got 5 Super Bowls. And here we go again. It's all valued on
that
the
prize,
Vince Lombardi trophy.
Yes.
Everyone forgets about what Belichick did with the taping. It hasn't brought up anymore.
My point wasn't to say they weren't pragmatic. They are. My point was to say you could possibly still achieve a winning tradition without being pragmatic. You could still, with lower draft picks, you can still have a good team. You don't need to lose on purpose.
But that's part of where I go back to. Yeah, they had lower picks because they won. But then again, to compensate, there's where they go to pragmatic and they cheat. They go about as being honorable with their scouting and their drafting, but what in fact is they're making up by taking those tapes because they didn't get a good draft pick. Well, that was the year that they upset the Rams. They weren't supposed to win. And again, that's been forgotten about.
No person, no group, no organization is 100% evil and 100% good. It's usually a mixture of the two. And you're just demonstrating that that's the case. I'm trying to say that you don't need to be pragmatic to be successful. You can do it through hard work. You can do it for hard study. You can do it from becoming a better player in the context of sports.
I guess going forward, my homework would be to try and find that organization in any sports, be it the 4 major ones, basketball, hockey, football, and baseball, that isn't pragmatic and they win on honor.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that exists. Now I'm going to do some homework.
Isn't that a sad indictment of our sports culture that it doesn't exist? If that's true,
winning,
that is so sad.
Winning that's what it is, winning.
And that is so sad.
I guess the one example where it wasn't winning and it took advantage of the system was the Kansas City Royals and the Pittsburgh Pirates. For the luxury tax with the Yankees, whoever goes over it, well, the Pittsburgh and Kansas City got that money. And for years, those owners were putting that money in their pocket.
Well, the owners,
they weren't,
yes.
And you got Steinbrenner saying, wait a minute, I'm paying a luxury tax and I'm paying those guys and they're not doing anything. Finally, after that was brought up, the Royals start putting a little bit more into their players and they were just involved in the World Series. It's a small market team. How does a small market team compete with the New York Yankees?
In a way, you're saying the leagues are adjusting for the pragmatism. Look, in the NHL, they stopped the tanking it for the higher draft pick by putting the lottery in. They're doing it in the NBA. That the budget rule, the salary cap rule, that is done it's trying to prevent the pragmatism. It doesn't always work.
It hasn't.
It doesn't always work. Look, what caused the salary cap in the NHL? It was Mike Ilitch buying the cup in 2002.
Every year getting Robitaille
and right after that, the salary cap came in. Because before that, when the New York Rangers tried it, it failed.
Well, many teams tried it before.
That's what I just said. It failed.
Many.
When it finally succeeded, that's when the NHL and the Players Union said that's enough. It's time for a salary cap. Before that, it was years without a salary cap. That's what pushed it forward. That pragmatism caused the salary cap. There is the problem. We need to root out all that bad thoughts, lack of thinking.
And in today's culture, I don't think we're going to do that. It's not going to happen overnight. There's where in the universities, the colleges, there's a whole other pragmatic point. That's the NFL's minor league system is the colleges. So, I mean, it starts down there. How long is it going to take? I don't think this is going to, again, because of the money in the situation, I don't think it's going to go away. It's only going to get worse.
Well, to wrap things up, you have to start thinking in principle, start thinking in absolutes, because without that, we're lost. And honestly, that's the only key. People have to start thinking, identify pragmatism.
I agree, but in conclusion, I think that's in today's culture, the dream world. If you want to survive, you got to be pragmatic.
That is so sad. But anyways, this is the Grand Design Podcast. Who are you listening to?